How do you know whether a property is inherited or not? So it is defined by again the standard. You go to any of the property like color, and in MDN documentation, I think at the bottom it will says inherited. Yes. What does it mean by inherited? S is, so if you define a color, all its descendants will have the same color unless you define for any descendant which is below. Or if you pick any element, if it doesn't have color, it will go to its parent and check if there is any color. If it's not there, it's go to that parent and check if there is a color. If it's not there, if it go to that parent and checks if it's a color, and if it's there, it will show at the same color. So that's what inheritance means. So if it's not inherited, it will not go and check to the parent. So this, and if it's not inherited, you can see in the documentation the border saying that okay, where is it? In the bottom. That should be here. Yeah, inherited, no. So border is not inherited. So if element doesn't have a border, it doesn't go to its parent and check and apply the same border. But if element doesn't have a color defined, it goes to its parent, checks the color, and then it applies it. So what does this affect the layout? So some of you might already been facing this issue in when they are doing it. So let's look at how this is applied. Now, like I said, I wrote a simple. Let me put font size as okay. So I put a simple HTML. There's a body in this. The children is there is a div, and there is a P, and there is a UL. Now you can see for body I made green, for class 1 I made red, and class 2 I made color blue. So but the UL and all these elements look green because it checked it doesn't have any color. It goes to the parent UL. It doesn't have any color. It goes to the body, which is its parent, and checks the color is green. That's why it is looking as green. The same is the case with class 1. So here for the second paragraph, I didn't put any color. For class 2, I put a color blue. So P doesn't have any color, so it goes to its parent, which is div, and checks class 2 has any color or not. Yes, it has some color. Now it makes the class 2 also will look blue, and its children will also look blue. The same is the case with but it will stop here. But if you look at the first para, it doesn't have any color. It goes to one parent up, which is class 1. Class 1 has a color of red, and so that this second div, which is inside which is the text of the class 1, and which is and also this paragraph which is inside this class 1 will appear red. And if you go to the first div, which is inside div, so this div doesn't have any color, so it goes up to body and shows as green. But if you put a color to a div, because then it will, let's say I'll put color as gray. Now you can see it turned gray. So this is what will happen if you can't find any of the inherited properties, not all properties, any of the inherited properties, that value is not there for that element. It goes up, goes up, goes up till it finds the value for that property and applies. So that's the one thing you need to remember. The general what are all the properties which takes inheritance and which don't take. Color takes inheritance and all the things. So like you can find out for each property which is the thing which is inherited, which is not from here. So the documentation has that inherited yes or inherited no. So what do you mean by inherited is it's not inherited? So I took the same kind of example. So instead of the same, what I did is I took the same HTML, so same CSS. You can compare. I took the same CSS, but instead of color, I used border this time. So, but you can see the border is not looking. It's not. In fact, I use the same colors. Okay. So this is the border only for the body has a border green, so that doesn't mean each element has border. So whereas here, if the body has a color green, all these elements which doesn't have any color will turn green. But this is not the case with non-inherited property. So this is not getting inherited. So you can see these things will not have the thing. The same is the case with class 2. So only class 2 will have this border, whereas the second para will not have this border, because it is inside of class 2. That doesn't mean it will have that border. The same is the case with class 1. So class 1 has this border red, but the children, which is the first para, will not have the border. So this is not inherited. So you can understand that this whereas in this case, because color is an inherited property, it will also like look what I say is red. So that's one of the things you should understand. Okay, so there is the next thing we're going to look at CSS is there is this special keyword called important. Just how like you like how like you get some special powers if you are some VIP person. In the same way, if you want to bypass all the priorities, so you can use this word. So what important does is it's a special piece of syntax. You can make these to like yesterday you were looking at a priority saying style is greater than style is greater than ID is greater than class, greater than type, greater than universal. So, but if you put an important keyword, this is a syntax for writing it. It starts with exclamation important. So then, whatever the thing that is important will get higher priority. It's a way of overriding, or it's a kind of special pass. It's been designed to put in place, but it will also it will also override inline CSS. So try to use this important very less extent, because if you use it too often, you might have a very big CSS file, and you might be seeing that I used the proper classes and proper IDs, but still why it's not looking in the fashion which I want it to behave. It might be because of somewhere down the line it has the property called some of the properties will have the important keyword. So this is the syntax for it. Okay. So I created the same kind of divs, class 1, class 2, which you did for yesterday priority class. And you can see the last class has class 2, ID 4, and color red. This is the 6th div, but it is not looking like red. It should look red. It should look like or if it's not the case, it has ID also. The ID 4 also has a color called yellow. But the class 2 has this special property called important. So that's why it is taking more priority over the IDs or the style, inner styles it has. So if I just remove this important, so you can see it will look the same. So because of the ID2 and all will so at any time you want to override the priority order, you can use this keyword, but use it with very caution. So it will bypass the priority order which you have learned yesterday. So the even it will override even the inline styles or the IDs if you put it for class. If you put for divs, let's say I put div color, let's say orange. So, but you can see none of them are orange. But as soon as I put important, you can see all these turned, and the top ones turned orange. The bottom ones are still what I saw as aqua. I'm going to explain why in the next set of example. Now let's say there are multiple importance. There are multiple things which has important, and you should understand then what will take priority is again the priority order. So there is this important which will override, but if multiple of them has important, let's say the class has important, the ID has important, and the type has important, and the inline has important. So again, then now the priority comes in picture. So then again, style is greater than if all of them have important. Style is greater. If the style and important is there, nothing can override it. It's the highest priority kind of thing. But then if it's only style, so I wrote the same kind of the classes here and IDs and it's like getting a VIP pass. Just assume that there is a special promotion or special treatment. Now, till here everything is same. Aqua is important, but now for the ID 3, I put color orange as important. So you can see here this fourth div is aqua, but in this scenario, the fourth the ID 3, which is the fifth div. Okay, so this is orange. This is not anymore aqua. In the same way, if I make ID this one important, so now but you can see that the style has important, so it will take over this. The styles important has more priority. If I remove this, then you can understand, okay, style doesn't have importance, ID doesn't have importance, but if this ID 4 is important, it will turn yellow. So if I say important, it will turn both ID 2 and ID 4 will turn yellow because I put important here. Now, if this is not there, and if the style has important, it has the most highest priority, and it will look this thing. So you can use important when you want to override some of the existing things. These are needed, like if there are 100 elements and then you want one thing to highlight, and then you can use that. Let's say you used like something to make everything like green and all, and you want one thing to highlight. At those cases, if you're using some syntax which is what I say is the ID is there, and then you can put that ID, and if you want to put that, make it important, nothing can like make it look, and the other styles will take the back seat, and these important will be of much more priority. So again, try to use it to the minimal, because as the page grows, as the CSS grows, if you put important a lot of places, you'll be confusing because you'll be applying the classes or the elements, but you'll be wondering why it's not getting like, let's say there's a red box. So something that happens is, if you are putting something class called red box and you override with at some other point you are overriding with an important property, and then you might be going by that class, and then you will be wondering why it's not looking red and all. So use it to the very minimal as possible. So that's how the importance plays a role in the CSS. So barring from here, so before we go to the next section, we need to know about two special things called pseudo classes and pseudo elements. So what are pseudo classes are these? How do you write the pseudo class syntax? Is the selector, single colon, and pseudo class. And what is pseudo element syntax? The selector, two columns, and a pseudo element. So what are pseudo classes? So these are special classes which you can't define. These are the given classes, and these generally represent some state of anything. So these are all the pseudo classes available. Now, why it's generally used? So one of the things you might have seen here or anywhere is there is this pseudo class called Hoover. What does Hoover does is whenever the mouse pointer goes on it, so then that special class will be applied. So you can say, let me put font size. Okay, so for this A, I put the pseudo class colon Hoover. So that means whenever the mouse is taken over here, so what does Hoover represent? So you can see here, Hoover. Yeah. So Hoover represents matches when the user interacts with an element with a pointing device. Okay, so what is a pointing device? That the mouse you are using is a pointing device. As soon as you put the mouse over here, you can see the color is red, and then font size, let's say I'll make it 60. So now these Hoover classes are generally used to give some feedback to the users who is interacting with it. Let's say in case of links or in case of inputs, let's say input, let's say type is equal to text. Now there's an input. Now we can say there is one more pseudo class called focus. So the focus represents an element such as form input that has received focus. That means when you are clicked on or that input thing, when you are trying to do something, so you can use input focus. So this I'm using, yes, then I'm saying border 2 pixel dashed, right, just to give you the indication to the user. Now you can see as soon as I click it, it's there. As soon as I click outside, it's gone. So generally these kind of things you can use to highlight user inputs and all. Okay, and again, so you can see this is the kind of behavior you can achieve using pseudo classes. There is one very interesting pseudo class which you will try to you can use it in many places. Let's say there are many elements. Let's say you are building a table or you are building a list of items, which you do in a lot of these cases. So this end child will let you select those elements in matches the element position in a group of siblings. So let's say you have so many siblings. So if you put any nth child, so based on that formula, it will select. So what are the syntaxes you can use? You can use, this is a syntax. So it has a lot of mathematics formulas which you can use. Let's say you can put odd, even, or n. That means, or a 7 or direct element. That means you are directly selecting the 7th element, or 5n. That means 5 into 1, 5. 10, 15th element, or let's say 7 plus, or you can use any of these formulas. So based on it, you can like, let's say you are building a table, or let's take the list here itself. So the list here itself has yeah. So you can just commenting this out. Now I'm saying li and child. Now if it's odd, I'm going to say color black and background white. Now for even, I'm going to do the opposite, color white and background black. Now you can see for for odd, the color is black and then background is white. Okay, and even, sorry, this child, even. Okay, so for odd, the color is black and the background is white. for even I made the color white and the background black. So you can see these things being changed. So with this very simple pseudo class of nth child, I was able to achieve this. Or you can use your simple formulas also. So odd is 2n plus 1, even is 2n. So it remains the same. Or if you want like every third one or third element to appear blue, you can do the same thing. So I'm just commenting this one also. So I put the 3n, that means 3, 6. If I add more like 9, so 9 will again 8 will be black. Now as soon as I add the 9, you can see it will appear blue. You can see it appears blue. In this way, you can use these formulas, or if you want to put a direct color to it, let's say ant child li ant child 9. So here again you can see it is down the 3n, so it will take more priority if 2 are matching. So I'll put red. So you can see now the 9th one is red. So in this way, you can select, especially when you have a large list of items. If you want to select a particular item, you can use this, or you can use this kind of anti-child things to style all the elements. So generally, people use it for odd and even. So when they're building tables and all, like I showed, for odd and even, if you want the different styles, because it's much more readable if you do the odd and even. If you that's slightly differentiated like this, you can see the odd and even are looking a bit different in both the cases. Now again, so we are not going to cover all the pseudo classes, so I am going to cover the important one like focus and hoover. I told you these are the things which you generally use, and child you can use whenever the things, and these are many more things which you have, and the syntax will remain the same. So whatever the element selector plus the what are the pseudo class you want, and then the property and the value you can use. In the same way, there are something called pseudo elements. So these are part of the elements which like these are very few. We are going to explore like a couple of them. So one, you can say the first letter and the first line. Let's explore these two. So again, so where is the pseudo element? Code pen, yes. So how do you write the pseudo element syntax? The selector and the two columns instead of, I mean, so the pseudo class is 1 semicolon, this is 2 semicolons. The first letter I said font size 36 pixels. So whenever I make any div or the first letter will become the 36 pixels. And the same way there is this font like for any paragraph, you can see, okay, any of the things you can see that the first letter. So this is the first letter syntax, and there are no second letter, there is no second line, only these are the available pseudo pseudo elements. Now you can see the first line I made color blue. You can see that the first line is in blue color till the end of first line. Even if it resizes, only the first line will be blue. You can understand that only the first line which is visible on the browser would be blue. So these are some of the more elements or pseudo classes which you need to understand for the thing. Okay, let's look at the final calculation of how which takes priority. Okay. With all these things, so it's called specificity. Okay. So what actually specificity is just nothing but a value, and it is used, but it has 4 values like thousands, hundreds, tens, and ones. So, and whoever has the highest value will take the more priority. So how do you calculate this? Because you can have very big CSS file, there's going to be multiple selectors. There's a formula to calculate the value of each of the selector. Let's say it's an inline or a style tag, which now you should understand. So inline style tag will have thousands of one, so that means it has a value of 1000. For ID selector, each ID selector, it will have 100. So the ID selector has 100. Then if there is so there is 10 for each class selector, attribute selector, pseudo class selector. So now you understand what is pseudo class. Let's say P or Li and child, so pseudo class, and for that it is 10. And not only that, each of let's say you wrote this CSS. Let's look at this one, and before that there is one for each one of the element selector, pseudo element selector. So these symbols will not have any scores, so you don't have to worry about it, and the universal selector does not have any scores. So let's say H1 is an element selector, so it will have 1. So you can see it has 1. Now H1 plus P, so H1 has 1 and P, there is 2 elements here, so you will have 2. The total score is 2. The plus will not have anything. H1 plus P and this the pseudo element first letter, so there is one H1 element, P is there, and which is 1, and then the pseudo element selector is there, one pseudo element, so it's like 3. Now take this very lengthy like rule or selector. So Li, by the way, if you have not done it, you can put this if you want this second child, so you can put this child of child. So all these things you can put. You can keep as many combinators as possible. Now say Li is an element, so there is 1. A is an element, so there is 1 here. Now this is an attribute selector, so there is 1 for each attribute selector. There is tens, and there is one class selector which has tens place, so it's one more 10. So total there are 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the total is 2 tens and then 2 ones. So total score is 22. Now for class selector, it is direct 1, so it's 10. For UI dot class, so this is a class selector plus an element. So for class selector 10 and an element selector 1, total score 11. For ID selector, I told it has 100, and the file style selector it has 1000. So now you have to calculate all these values, and whichever has the highest priority. If that element falls under multiple selectors, whichever has the highest score will take over. And if 2 values have the highest score or same highest score, the one which is at the bottom, which you can see from the yesterday's class, will take more priority. Now let's check how it will affect. So I created very specific examples to explain you these things. Okay, so there is a div with ID1 first div, there's an ID2 second div, there's an ID3 with class, and then a link here. Now I wrote the selector ID1 plus div. This is the combinator I used. Now the score would be 101. So that's why the second div will be blue, even though the second div has an ID of red. ID2, it's red. The score is 100. Even though this is below, this is above, because this has a highest score of 101. Because you said ID1 plus div. So that means 100 plus the ID selector plus div has 1, so 101. So that's why the second div will be looking as blue. Yeah, the second div would be looking as blue. Now the same is the case with ID3A. The score is 101. Now class 1A, the score is 11. So even though this is bottom, this is at the top because it has the highest score. So any descendant of ID3 will look red, which is a link. Even though the class 1 you selected this A is using this class 1 A, it is not looking green because of the thing again. So that's the pretty basic thing. Let's look at one more example. Yeah, so I put an order for this specificity. Okay, now I use a bunch of things. So I put I take the same kind of thing: ID1, ID2, ID3, ID4, ID5, ID6, ID7, ID8. Now you can see all the things have score 101. So this div, I put some, let's take height. If I take the minimum height, so if you look there. So I will explain you minimum height maybe tomorrow. What is minimum height is, it will have minimum of that height. So that's the thing. So the height is the thing, but if height has anything more, it might grow. But minimum height, even if it doesn't have anything inside it, it will be at least of 20 pixels. So that's what minimum height is. I put margin to put a gap over here. Now I'm saying ID1 right arrow the child combinator div, I put it have solid 2 pixel solid red. Then again it should be red if I don't have this. Okay, now again, because if it also the score is, because here the score is where is this? Yeah. Because the score is 101 here also, but this is below the above one. So that's why I put two selectors, one a child selector, one a descendant selector. Both will have the same score. So any div inside it will have the same score. But you can see this is below, so that's why it's turning black. But if I make it, let's say, so it doesn't matter. So whatever the color you are putting here, because this thing will take over. Let's say even if you say orange or anything. So, but if you remove this, selector, now it will look orange, but it is only one box is coming because I used a child selector here, not a descendant selector. So the descendants, again, border is not an inherited property, so all the things will not have the thing. Now if I remove it back, okay. Now what I have done is, in the bottom example, I did the reverse. For all the all the descendant selectors, I put a solid black color. So you can see all the things should be black, but I moved this. So that's why all will have black, but I moved this child selector, child descendant selector to the bottom. So previously it was top, now I put the bottom, and then I put it as like the border 2 pixels solid red. Now you can see that the first child, only child it has is becoming red because it's at the bottom. So it is overriding things. So if both have same scores, the one which has the bottom will take the more priority. So that's the thing you need to understand. But if you use this, you can see it turned orange. So you should keep that in mind. The important is always applicable.